What's up YouTube? My name is Deadeye and today I'll be bringing you a guide or a build guide about my, let's call it Ice Crash, but it's interchangeable with like a lot of other melee skills. So Ice Crash / Consecrated Puff mostly. Melee Deadeye. So long story short, the reason I'm playing this is because when we were doing week 1 shenanigans where we played as a group, I played an MF carry. At some point I had some downtime and my chat kind of convinced me to start synthesizing something that could be used in a later stage of the league. So long story short, I spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out the Nexus because I didn't know anything about it. Trying to figure out synthesis because I didn't know anything about it. And I ended up making an elemental foil with attack speed and lightning damage implicit. This is like week or day 5 of the league. So eventually, I had to use it. And then I started thinking, what build am I going to use with an LE foil? And if you don't want to do melee, only Spectral Throw comes to mind. I didn't really want to do that. So yeah, I ended up rolling something melee. Now the reason as to why I chose Ice Crash in the beginning was because it has a really high base damage scaling. It has 160% of base damage. And you need that with an LE foil. Because there's not that much scaling LE nodes in the tree. You don't have like increased fizz nodes or whatever you can pick up. You don't have conversion to scale off of. So I wanted a skill that had a lot of inherent scaling. The idea then was to pick up as much AoE as possible to make it actually clear fast, and try and see how bad melee really was in its current state. Now there's a lot of problems with melee. Pebbles come to mind, the fact that you need like a ton of defenses because you're gonna get off-screened every now and then, which is really annoying. But the build actually turned out pretty good. Now let me show you what I did. So gear-wise, that is. I started out with the idea of getting as much AoE as I possibly could. So the first piece I made was a +1 frenzy pair of gloves. I made this myself. Was rather easy actually. And then I alt-regaled it for T1 life with a good resist. We got this pretty early on. It's the first and all we got this on. And then I multi-modded. Initially I wanted to multi-mod AoE, damage while leeching, and crit / LE, or LMH if you've crit recently. But it turned out I needed a lot of resists, so I ended up crafting the cold res instead. But yeah, the main reason why I want to multi-mod here is because I think that the damage while leeching was better than flat, and I wanted to craft the area of effect. Also, there were no +1 frenzy charge gloves for sale that were actually relevant. So I made this myself. I think it's a pretty decent pair of gloves for the build. Next up, we made a pair of boots with movement speed and some lightning res. Took me a lot of time to actually enchant them. I think it cost me like 60 enchanted fossils. Didn't get it. Started running lab on my very scuffed winter orb build. Didn't go so well. But eventually we got it. After like 20 or something uber labs with twice enchanted. It took me a while. And then I spent some alchemies and some scours. Like I didn't actually want to roll this. I just wanted to play at that point because I just spent like 3 hours in Uber Lab. I just wanted to like, start playing the build. So yeah, it ended up being 70 life, 25 MS, 2 resists. It's not the best pair of boots, but it definitely does the trick. It can easily be upgraded into something that's way better. With some delve shenanigans, could go to like, 43 and 5 or something. Like 47 or something movement speed. That would be really nice, but I didn't end up needing it. Then initially I used this helmet, which had AoE double res life, also the 13 AoE and the 12 Ice Crash AoE, but as it turns out, if I can show you guys this, it doesn't really matter. If I go here, so this is the non-AoE, this is the AoE, like it's noticeable, but it's like very, very, very small. So yeah, I ended up not caring about it and I ended up dropping it. Some quick tree reference, I initially also buffed to amplify for the max, literally max AoE. Ended up dropping that to pick up some more damage, but we'll get there later on. Rest of the gear pieces, I'm using a pretty mediocre ring. The reason why I'm having this ring is because I needed it to have an open prefix. It's 40 wet, 12 aura, 70 life, only a sapphire base. It's nothing crazy, but I crafted -7. I'll get to why that's important later. Same on the other one. I bought this ring as is, without the minus mana cost, but it had life on it. So crafted life. I annulled off the life. And crafted -4, which was a mistake, because I should have crafted -7, or even -9, but that was an exalt. And I just wanted to try it out at that point. Worst case, I can just redo the multi-mode. But yeah, I should have at least found someone who had -7, because I crafted -5 because I didn't have the -7 roll. I have some uniques. I'm using a Lyco, coming back to that later. I swapped to a Light Poacher with a no enchant, just because I wanted the sockets to scale up damage a little more, because the damage felt like just a little bit short before I did this, when I had all the AoE and stuff. I'm using an Assassin's Mark ring, as I said, with like the -7 and some multi-mods. This one's just life. And then the standard combo I've been using in almost all my builds this league, Headhunter and Solstice. Headhunter gives you the rare mods of a monster if you kill it, which is really good, but it gets a lot better if you can keep the mods for like 5 times the amount, because Shaper's Present, which is what you get if you kill a rare monster, extends these buffs by quite some time. Besides that, the Ember has damage, it has life, and it gives you a free Blasphemy Temp Chains. So this is Temp Chains linked to a Blasphemy over here. I have no mana left, it requires no mana. That's pretty big, because Temp Chains is a pretty big defense. As for my last rare piece, I'm using a foil, the foil I talked about. It's an attack speed, lightning damage, implicit foil. This one is really bad, but it ate like 8 exalts, both in fossils or in alteration so far. I never got what I wanted. Initially, I wanted to get a 40% weapon elemental damage with T1 attack speed base, and I wanted to multi-mod crit chance, hits can be evaded, and damage penetrates 15% of elemental resist. Now, why did I want to get hits can be evaded? Because I wanted to use a Zeal's amplifier in the build initially, because again, this is 50% AoE. In hindsight, though, I don't think you need that. I think going with the Lyco and sticking with it is fine, because like, what else are you gonna get from a shield? Maybe if you want some more defenses from a shield, you can get the hits can be evaded on a sword. But I feel like the build's fine as it is. I don't have any ambition of hitting 100. This build can easily hit like 96, 97 without any issues. With the occasional dead, of course. So yeah, I would go for more damage on the foil right now if I was still to make an LE foil. However, I'll probably be making a Fizz/Explode foil with the Explode implicit to give it more clear speed even, and to give it better Headhunter scaling. But we'll come back to that later. Flask-wise, I'm using a Quicksilver of Adrenaline, sorry, Alchemist, the Zoom Flask, right, the one you should always use in every build. Using a Dying Sun. It's important that it has at least 1% increased charges or reduced charges, because as long as it's not 2% increased or higher, you will be able to use it twice. Especially if you have a good AoE roll on it, because it'll actually matter. So yeah, you want like a decent roll Dying Sun. They're pretty cheap this league, so it doesn't really matter if you want a good roll. I have a Chemist's Diamond of Warding. Warding's necessary. Chemist is good on the Diamond Flask because it gives you more uses. And I mean, a Diamond Flask with a crit build, so there's that. And then the other 2 flasks are a Silver of Staunching. Don't mind the prefix here. This flask was never actually rolled. But I clear at a speed that it doesn't matter which prefix I have, because my flasks are always up. And a Surgeon's Sulfur of Heat. Don't use a Sulfur Flask. You should probably use a Basalt or something here, but I never replaced it. I initially used it because I wanted to. I initially thought I was going to use a Bottled Fate here, but as it turns out, I would need some corruptions on jewels to be able to get away with not having any of these Flask suffixes, because you want the Freeze immune, you want the Bleed immune, and you want the Curse immune. So yeah, there's that. Besides that, I'm using a Carcass Jack for the AoE area damage. Pretty obvious choice. Make sure to get a good roll. It's actually pretty impactful. And my main links are, and this is where it gets interesting, so I have Consecrated Path, which is interchangeable with Ice Crash. Even Tectonic Slam works. I tried Cyclone, it's also not bad. I tried Earthquake, also not bad. Like, it all works as long as you have the AoE. Weapon elemental damage, or elemental damage with Dex, I should say, nowadays. Damage on full life. I'll get to why you're always on full life. In KoE, obviously, and I used Added Cold because it was the best multiplier I had, because I don't actually have a lot of flat. I have a lot of scaling through Headhunter, through Solstice, and then my jewels are, like, these are kind of flatty, Like they have like a decent amount of flat, but like the ones on my tree don't really have that. So I needed some flat to like, you know, get the initial damage out there. My last link is Energy Shield Leech. Now I checked the available multipliers for support gems for melee builds, and they're actually kind of scarce. So I went with Energy Shield Leech because I thought I could make it work. Now this is a problem because you're generally always full ES, so you're not leeching. So we're counteracting that by using a Blood Rage, which gives you like reliable frenzies, gives you a lot of attack speed, but it makes you degen, right? Now the Energy Shield Leech is nice, but it doesn't really sustain the degen from Blood Rage, which is why I fitted in a Discipline, because I am using a Watcher's Eye that gives me ES on hit while affected by Discipline. Now, this combination makes it so I can get the 39% more damage while leeching on, while leeching Energy Shield pretty much the entire time. I also get 19 attack speed and perma frenzy charges, and I guess, yeah, some amount of Energy Shield for a Watcher's Eye and a Discipline gem. That's pretty good. Now to fit this in, I had to use a level 4 Enlighten, otherwise it didn't work, because I also wanted to use Hatred and Herald of Ice. Hatred is kind of interchangeable with Wrath, which is pretty important if you want to pick up a 2-stat Watcher's Eye with either a Hatred or a Wrath mod. They're both kind of the same DPS. I think Hatred scales Headhunter a little bit better because it's a more multiplier compared to Wrath, which is just flat damage, but both are fine. Rest of my gems, I have a Blasphemy Temp Chains over here. These are all leveling gems. I have a Val Grace. I'm not actually using the Grace, but I'm using the Val Grace, Blood Rage, and then I have a Leap Slam linked to Blood Magic because I don't want to use my mana. I'll come to that later. Faster attacks and Fortify. Now, for this entire step to work, I only have 59 mana left, and my skill costs, I'll show you, but it costs like 27, I think. So it's costing 27 mana, 23 mana after I crafted -11 on my rings. Is kind of annoying, because you only have 59 and you have a lot of attack speed. Like with Blood Rage, you have like almost 5 a second, right? Headhunter is gonna scale that up higher. I have some attack speed if I've killed. So yeah, you're not gonna have enough mana, like, because you don't have enough mana pool to make your mana leech actually leech back enough mana so you can sustain. So any kind of like reduced mana cost or like you know, a little bit more mana you can squeeze out is pretty impactful, because if you want to like single target something and you want to like perma attack it, you know, this happens. This is an exaggeration obviously because I'm not leeching, but yeah, like the minus mana cost is actually pretty big. So yeah, the Energy Shield Leech support is pretty good. It also enables my damage while leeching on my gloves. So yeah, this is like 43% more, 39% more, or sorry, 42% increase, 39% more, the attack speed from Blood Rage, and some flat ES only for giving up this socket and getting an Enlightened level 4. For the tree, we went Deadeye. We went Deadeye pretty much only for Endless Munitions. That was the entire reasoning behind it, because I wanted a 50% increased area of effect. So you go there by picking up Far Shot. Far Shot does nothing for you. Neither does all the projectile damage and accuracy. Then you go Rupture. Rupture is a very underestimated node. It has a pretty good crit multi and crit chance while bleeding, and since it has inherent attacks that cause bleeds, you're pretty much bleeding everything that or where the damage will matter. And then I'm using Tailwind. Tailwind's like one of the best nodes in the entire game, and it's always at max effect pretty much because I have so much attack speed and whirl and whatnot. I also like spam Blood Rage left and right if I have some downtime to keep it up. Deadeye overall, not the best ascendancy if you want damage or survivability, but it's a pretty good ascendancy if you want to clear speed, even for something like Ice Crash or Consecrated Puff. For the tree, pop out the regular life nodes from Shadow, pick up some attack speed. Then we go to this node because it has Ellie Pen, which is pretty good, since we have a lot of cold damage. Weapon elemental damage from sword crit nodes. This is the first Inspired Learning cluster because this is a Headhunter build. Inspired Learnings are pretty good. Go Phase Acro, have a Watcher's Eye here. This is the second Inspired Learning cluster. Over here you want to pick up at least Resourcefulness because you need it for the Inspired Learning. You don't need this node This is because my particular gear set needs this for autos. Otherwise, I would have not picked this up. This is damage AoE, crit chance, life, attack speed. Over here, we pop through the jewel socket to the reduced mana. Again, we need this because if we don't have it, we have like 1 attack instead of 2 attacks, which is very, very uncomfortable. I would advise getting this for sure. Then we pick up Harrier to go to the Unnatural Instinct cluster, which gives you the movement speed, the crit multi, and the life nodes, as well as 4% attack speed here, and then like these 3 attack speed nodes, and 5 int and 5 dex, which is not bad. To then go up here. Like initially I puffed through this life and mana. I went to Templar to pick up Amplify. I did not have all of this. Like all the curse node shenanigans. I stopped at the socket and I didn't have these nodes. But I needed some damage. I also tried Assassin's Mark with a Doge's Damning for like a couple of maps to see how impactful it was, because the way this works is if you have a level 8 Assassin's Mark but a level 20 Temp Chains Blasphemy, the level 20 Temp Chains is always going to override it, unless for some reason you off-screen curse with Herald of Ice, I think, and then you will get the power charges. But having the Assassin's Mark was really, really big, so I liked that. And the damage increase was pretty big. So yeah, I went double curse, picked up some curse effect, picked up some multi, this Snowforge node I only have because it's 10 fire and cold res, and it has like not the bad node, but it's not a good node either. But it has the 30%, the 10% fire and cold res, which I need for my build at this point, at this stage of gear levels. Travel through the blast radius node to pick up more AoE and a jewel socket, life curse node. So my 2 rare jewels are not any crazy things. It's like good multi with area damage, and this one also is probably a good multi. Some attack speed, I guess. Yeah, melee, area, attack speed, multi. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, in general, the build plays out really, really nice. There's a lot of upgrades to be had. I could go for a physical foe, which is what I think I'm doing. I'm gonna go with a Explodey implicit to get more clear speed, then pick up these nodes for full conversion, because both Consecrated Path and Ice Crash already convert 50% of their physical damage. The rest of the gear I think is pretty set in stone. You could obviously get a better ring, or 2 better rings actually, because the multi-mod could be better, and this one could be a multi-modded ring, but as it turns out for now, the build's feeling really well, feeling pretty fine. It does pretty much everything besides endgame bosses, because it's obviously a clear speed build. It doesn't really, it's not designed to do bosses, but going from clearing delves to clearing nexus to clearing really, really juiced up tier 16s, it does that all pretty well. It kills beyond bosses into attacks. If you get some juice, it kills Elder Square bosses, which I think for a melee build are super, super, super scary. So all in all, I'm really happy with the build. I'm really happy with what it does and how it plays. It's a blast to be playing melee. I haven't played melee in so long, and it feels so good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this to you guys if you have like a lot of money lying around and you want to waste it on like playing something that feels refreshing, especially if you don't play melee a lot. It has a really, really good feel to it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, try it out. Like, honestly, just try it out. It's like, it's a really, really good build. Also, you can save a skill point on the tree. I just realized this. If you path this way and you skip these, then you can skip these, and I think you save a point. But anyhow, the conclusion here is melee is in a pretty bad state. Even though the build feels amazing, it has a lot of obvious problems with the pebbles, things off-screening you. You need to build defenses, because I will regularly die to something that off-screens me. You need defenses. You are using skills that require intensive investment, both on gear and on the tree, to feel good as a skill. You need a lot of AoE increase and stuff like that, which you don't need for spellcasters. You need a really, really good weapon to make things die fast, because yeah, obviously I have a headhunter and stuff like that, and everything's gonna die regardless. If I didn't have a headhunter, my sword would be way too weak, and I would need a 20 exalt sword to make this build work. I feel like. So there's a lot of investment both in gear, defenses, damage, AoE, clear speed. Like, you have to do all of that, whereas you could just use a spell and then, you know, like, you would be fine. So I think melee does have a lot of work, but yeah, that being said, I think that's all I needed to tell you guys. The build's really enjoyable. You should try it out. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comment section, and I will try to answer you, or just come hang out at stream, twitch.tv/tbxe. We're live every single day. And I love educating, so make sure to come and hang out. Otherwise, if you like the video, make sure to press the subscribe button or leave a like, or both. And then I hope to catch you guys in another video, and I would like to thank you all for watching, and catch you the next time. See ya.